Okay, let's get more in on this now from Ben Aris. He joins me from Berlin. He's the editor-in-chief at Business News Europe. Welcome, Ben. Always a pleasure to speak to you on this. I just asked our correspondent if Russia had had input into this peace proposal, because there were some reports that actually Kirill Dmitriev, an envoy of Russia, had put this together with Steve Witkoff. Kremlin denies it. I mean, but it looks very much like something that Russia would have liked to have put together, don't you think?
I think it's fairly certain that Dmitriev was deeply involved, in so much as Witkoff, when the news broke, it was leaked to the US press, and apparently Witkoff was unaware of that. And he said in what he thought was a private message, ended up on Twitter, that this came from Kay, again, probably from Dmitriev, in order to get the ball rolling and get this out. And they met in Miami for a few days and apparently thrashed out the details. And Dmitriev is interesting in so much as Dmitriev has been talking a lot to Witkoff, and they've had a parallel track doing business deals. And he said that from the beginning. And if you look at the details of the 28-point plan, there's actually a lot of business in there. There's joint ventures with the states. There's talk of mineral exploitation in Alaska. There's a $100 billion fund that some of the frozen money from the CBR is going to be put in, that will be jointly managed by the US and Russia. So if you ask me, it's got Dmitriev's fingers all over it.
This must be very frustrating for anybody who is from the EU side of things or the Ukrainian side of things, who wants to see a fair deal. Because what that sounds like, what you've just said to me, is that Donald Trump has gone in there and thought, how much can I get out of this for myself, for the US, out of getting peace, and irrelevant of what Ukraine wants?
Indeed. We've been arguing for a while now that if you look at all the peace deals that Trump's been involved with, in nearly all of them, there's been some sort of mineral or energy deal attached to it. And I think that's what Trump is all about. And in Alaska, they explicitly, Putin and Trump, discussed the possibility of both Russians exploiting minerals in Alaska and also American companies doing it in Russia. And as I said, this was also mentioned in the peace deal. And if you look back to the original beginning of the discussions between Ukraine and America, it started with a minerals deal. And it was only then that, you know, they moved on to security and the other big issues. But look, I mean, everyone's unhappy. The EU's been excluded. Ukraine has been excluded. And I think the calculus behind it is, like, how much pressure is Ukraine under? And the White House is calculating that Zelensky's in a very bad place, that it's going badly on the battlefield. At the same time, Trump has sent no money at all, and America used to be responsible for 40%. And so they're facing an economic crisis. Europe is running around and trying to get together this reparations loan, 140 billion euros, but that's not going anywhere. And so Ukraine also faces a macroeconomic crisis as soon as February or March next year. And the White House is calculating, with all this pressure, they can force Zelensky to do a deal. And on the other side, Zelensky's looking at his partners in Europe, and they're promising him all this money. And so he's calculating that he can continue to fight. And so whether this deal comes through is dependent on, like, how close you think Ukraine is to being defeated on the battlefield, which I think is Putin's calculation, which is why he's being so tough. Nevertheless, he's offered a few concessions in this deal. He switched from demanding de jure recognition of the break of the occupied regions to just de facto. He's also conceded that he's going to get none of that frozen money back, that the European money will be returned, but 100 billion of that money will go into a joint Russia-Ukraine fund. And the ball's in Kiev's court. They've got to make this horrible decision, this weighing up. Can we stick it out on the battlefield long enough to get our, you know, quote unquote, just peace? Or are we going to lose and then be forced into a normal capitulation where they just lose the war?
Yeah, sounds a bit like a poisoned chalice has been handed to Volodymyr Zelensky to drink from. Appreciate your analysis. Thank you. Ben Aris, my guest, editor of BNE IntelliNews. He's in Berlin. Thank you.